So I am going to start today, and then Nina is going to take over. So I'm going to give you an overview of the data collection from last year and some of our preliminary analyses. And then Nina is going to tell you some of the things that maybe didn't work as well and that maybe we need to, adjust our protocol just a little bit. This is year 2. Nina and I were talking about this yesterday. It's nearly impossible to get everything right in your first year of any data collection. So, that's totally par for the course, that we have some ways that we can improve this year. And the pandemic is slowing down. So that means that we can actually do some in-person training. We will still be socially distanced, masked on. And if you don't feel comfortable coming in person, we totally understand. But we'll talk more about that. Did you already start recording, Nina?
Yeah, we are good to go.
Okay. I didn't get the warning, so I wasn't sure. So welcome back. We've had a lot of people returning. I think the last time I checked, it was like 72% of people from last year are doing it again this year, which is amazing. We know that it is an investment in your time or of your time, and we really appreciate it because we literally cannot do this work without you. So we want to share some of what we've learned this last year. A reminder about our research goal. The overall point is to understand if and how landscape management affects bee diversity and community dynamics. And by that, we just mean, looking at the whole community for how bees are interacting with plants, which plants they're interacting with, and what that whole structure looks like. So here is our map from the locations from last year, including your own homes on there somewhere. And we had a total of 168 locations that folks did the full training. Not everybody continued throughout the whole year, but we did have really high success rate with that as well. So we had 106 people who are of what we call the general community, and that just means that they're not in the Bring Conservation Home program. Because one of the things that we're doing with this research is to look at the Bring Conservation Home certification levels and understanding how that program might support bee diversity or might not. And then we have an additional subset of locations that Nina is actually netting at, and she will be coming to a subset of those again this year. And then we are also going to be visiting everybody this year. So we don't have the new people yet. We have about 45 new people signed up already to join the program, and those trainings are going to be in May. So we encourage you to get the word out, share it with your neighbors, your friends, anybody in the region that you think might be interested. We're hoping to have a similar sized cohort this year to last year, although last year was quite large. So if we don't meet that, we're super happy with what we have, really, but we'd like to get the word out more and include as many people as we can. All right, so last year we had 8,116 observations. That was our final official Shutterbee count. And that was as of March, I think 3rd or something like that. 96% of them we were able to get to genus or lower taxonomic level, which is amazing. Many of them we were able to get to species, and that's a promising number, because this is something that we weren't sure exactly how well this was gonna work in terms of photographing bees and how close do you have to get. We know those little bees are hard. We'll talk more about that later. And so, yeah, but 96% to genus or lower is really awesome. We also had 7,657 plants that were identified by you all, which is hugely helpful. I cannot stress how pleasantly surprised we were by your guys, all your amazing work, because I really thought the fall was going to be us identifying plants, like the whole fall, because I wasn't sure how many people were going to be able to submit this information. And we were really able to get into the data analysis much more quickly because of all of your efforts. So 94% of our observations, we were able to identify 2 genus, and that is we converted everything to scientific name. So in this case down here, This is one where we actually have the scientific name already on there. If you know scientific names, that's awesome. If you don't, common names are amazing as well. We can always convert them ourselves, and we have a good set of code now to do that, created by Emily Burley. And that's my transition into talking a little bit about Emily Burley's senior thesis work. Many of you came and joined us for her presentation in the fall. So if this looks familiar, that's why, but I wanted to share it and make sure that the whole community was familiar with the progress that we're making. So just to remind you what some of their hypotheses were, this is Nina Fogel's data from a few summers ago, where she looked at folks enrolled in the BCH program and then their nearest neighbors. And for those high ranked locations in the BCH program, so that would be anything with gold or platinum level, you see that the richness of the flower diversity, or the number of species, flowering species, is higher in those locations than in their nearest neighbors. That was also true, although a little bit to a lesser degree, for the low conservation ranking, which would be silver ranking. In the unranked neighbors had no difference. Now, we don't have all of the floral data for everybody who isn't in BCH, but this is a sort of an estimator to give us a sense for what our predictions might be. So we would predict that bees will forage from a greater diversity of flowering plants when they are available. And we expected this to be greater for our generalized bee species, the ones that are a little bit more cosmopolitan. They'll visit as many things as possible. And relative to some of the other bees that are a little bit more picky, they're not necessarily specialized in the sense that they'll only visit one plant, but they're more so than their friends. And so that was the work from Emily Burley's thesis that she presented and defended last December. So she ended up using these 5 species: Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, 3 species of bumblebees: the common bumblebee, Bombus impatiens, the brown belted, Bombus cruciacolus, the 2-spotted, which is Bombus bimaculatus, and our beautiful shiny carpenter bee, Xylocopa virginica. And you may notice that most of these, or if you know anything about bee biology, particularly bumblebees, these ones are actually pretty generalized. They're pretty egalitarian. They will visit lots of other things. And that is one of the things that we saw in our data, is that these species that are a little bit pickier in their floral resource use were not as highly represented in the data. That's not surprising, because we know that urban environments sort of favor those generalized groups. But this is something that we're hoping that as we get more years of data, we'll be able to explore a little bit more. So what I'm going to be showing you today is just going to be for those generalized species. All right, so let me orient you to how these figures, or what these are going to look. Right here, this is for Bombus impatiens all the way over to the left. The ranking is color-coded and shape-coded, if you will. And then on the y-axis, that's Simpson's diversity, which is just a measure of how generalized the species are, right? So what is the diversity of plants that they're visiting? And on the x-axis, that is percent impervious surface. That's one measure of urbanization. There are many measures, and actually a composite measure that Nina and Sasha and Gerardo have been working on is we're going to use in the future to sort of better describe urbanization, because it's something that's a little bit not fake, but it's in our brain, right? What is urbanization? And it actually has multiple components to it. And so their measure will actually do that. And at some point, we're going to have Nina sit down and give you her whole, update for her thesis stuff, but not yet. She's still going through a lot of her bees. So, but I forgot to say this. We have to congratulate Nina because she passed her orals. So she is officially a PhD candidate. So I meant to do that to you earlier. She's going to be blushing and not wanting to.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Shut up.
It is exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
I couldn't have done it without all your help.
Yes.
As in everyone who's here.
Right, because she used some of your data for her proposals. So, all right. So you might notice for this first one, there's no lines there. There doesn't really seem to be much of a relationship. Those dots are everywhere. And that's because impatience doesn't really seem to matter. It will visit anything that it possibly can, pretty much anywhere. It has a pretty high Simpson's diversity. And we see similar things with Grisiacolis and Xylocopa virginica. Now, we looked at different spatial scales to see if the bees were responding to urbanization at different spatial scales, because some bees have a really narrow foraging range. And so you might expect them to respond to really more local patterns. And then the other bees have much larger ranges. And so they might be responding to larger spatial scales. And we do see a pattern with Apis mellifera. This is the species that we saw the strongest patterns in. And you'll see that it also, in general, has a pretty high specialization score, particularly in those locations that are highly ranked, right? In terms of their BCH rank. So when the plants are available, they will visit them. And they will change their foraging strategies to incorporate them. And that's also demonstrated over here. Without the effect of urbanization, we see that the foraging diversity was much higher in those high and low conservation status locations. Maybe we should change it not to high and low, because low makes it sound bad, and it's not bad. It's already like these sites are already at silver level. So don't take that personally. We'll rechange our ranking names for you. All right. And then we did see the opposite trend with Grisiacolis, which is kind of interesting. So at larger spatial scales, at the 2,000 meter radius around each location, as you get more impervious surface, so as it gets more urbanized, if you will, Grisiacolis will visit fewer flowers. And that might be counterintuitive. That wasn't exactly what we were anticipating. We were anticipating as it gets harder for them to search, because with more impervious surface, there might be fewer flowers, or they're more spaced out. We expected them to be generalized. So whenever they find a patch of flowers, they would visit whatever they possibly could. But there's an alternative theory. And that alternative theory is based in foraging theory. And that theory posits that if you have larger distances between patches, excuse me, and it's taking you more time in order to find certain patches and search for flowers, that they're going to narrow their search image so that they're better at finding those flowers. And so therefore they end up more specialized. And this is something that's been seen in a couple other locations in some published papers. And so it seems like, I guess one of the main takeaways is that honeybees are really responding to those local floral resources, whatever's available, they're visiting. Grisiacolis is our only native bee, but it seems to be responding to those larger spatial scales, and they're doing it in different ways. So the way that honeybees are responding is the flip of what Grisiacolis is, how they're responding. So that's really interesting, and that's implying, at least for the small subset of bees that were looked at here, it's implying that we have species-specific patterns. And so considering the species might be important for interpreting what local versus regional resources are going to mean for their foraging. So most of our generalistic species exhibited no change, and those that did exhibited contrary patterns, which is really kind of interesting. We'll continue to explore this over the next few years as we get more and more data and we're able to include more species. So our next steps are to look at network level analyses. So this is the thesis work of Jessica Clonis. And for this, we need even more visitation records. So we have looking at all of the bees that were documented and all of the plants that they documented to look at who's interacting with whom and whether or not we see patterns changing over within the St. Louis region. And then of course we want to accumulate more data to better test these hypotheses, both Emily's and Jessica's, as I don't know how much everybody here is familiar with ecological research, but essentially anytime you publish something with 1 year, they're like, okay, yeah, sure. But interannual variation is such a big deal. So how much can we really trust 1 year's worth of data? So this accumulation of data over years is important. So with that, I think we will transition over to Nina to talk a little bit more about our next steps. And she has another layer of detail to give you in some of the preliminary analyses she's run, as well as our recommendations moving forward. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and she is going to take over.
There we go. Okay. So Nicole just got the opportunity to share some really cool preliminary data, and I have some as well. I would say it's a little more of a bummer because what I was doing was examining the data quality overall associated with the project. And so what I did here is it's called a Jacquard similarity analysis. And what that does is it looks at my netting. So these were the 37 houses that I netted in and also did Shutterbee. And this isn't a perfect data set. It was comparing all my netting over the course of the summer to all the 37 people's Shutterbee stuff. And and so it's, there's differences in times and things like that. It's not perfect, but by combining all the data together, we're able to generally look at some trends. And this is all based on the fact that there's been quite a few studies that have shown that netting is the most efficient and most effective way to capture bee diversity. So what this is showing here is a higher similarity means that the Shutterbee data was more similar to the netting, whereas a lower similarity analysis shows that the netting is less, or the Shutterbee is less similar to the netting. And what we're seeing here is that generally people are doing a better job capturing the larger bees, which is this orange line, than they are the smaller bees. So this shows that overall there's some biases in the data towards the larger bees, and this can have a lot of implications for the the data we're able to get out of the project. Because if people are systematically missing groups of bees, that's data we're missing for the networks, we're missing for the distributions and things like that. But we're not just going to complain. We're going to give you some tips to help you better capture these small bees. So when you do your surveys, make sure to, take photos of these large bees, so the carpenter bees and the bumblebees and the apis. But, after you capture one or two, just kind of forget about them for that survey. You're tagging and indicating that you found them in your yard, but you really don't need to take pictures of absolutely every bumblebee you see. Instead, grab a few photos and then really try to seek out diversity in these medium-sized bees. This is where a lot of the bees are found. So this is really where the diversity is going to be, which is in this small, or this like intermediate level, roughly about half the size of a penny to almost as large as a dime. And lastly, really look out for these small bees. So we're seeing these small bees underrepresented overall. And so these are going to be your Hylaeus and Lasioglossum and Ceratina mostly. So these are really small. We know that they're hard to see and hard to capture, but definitely try to seek them out, and we're going to try to help you see them better. But what we're also finding is that more observation periods are better. So this is the total observation periods that this is everyone now, not just those people I netted in as well. The total observation periods they did over the summer, and then the species richness, or how many different types of species did they find. And what we're seeing is that in general, more observation periods are better. Now we know most of you probably won't have time to do, 20, 30 observation periods over the course of the summer. But we're really hoping that you can try to do at least 2 times per month. So, that will really increased. So that's about 10. And we're really seeing increases in the species richness that people have after about 10 observation periods. So, things are going to open up a little bit more this summer. Of course, you'll hopefully have a few more things to do. But we're hoping you'll be pros at this now. Some of the initial hiccups will be gone and you can really spend some time to do about 2 observation periods a month. If you want to do more, go for it. We're totally, you're totally welcome to do that, but twice a month would really be best as far as data quality goes. Additionally, so we have made an updated bee guide. Unlike the first one I made, this one has a little bit less text. It has pictures. It has size guides and kind of time of year and how common it is to find. And why we're making this is hopefully to improve your search image recognition. And what search image recognition is just your ability to recognize something as what it is. So for example, if you didn't know what keys were, I could explain them. I could say, it's a ring with kind of metal pointy things sticking off of it. If you pick it up, it makes noise. And you have to process all this information to realize, okay, Nina's talking about keys and I need to go find my car keys. But because all of you, speak and you know what keys are, I could just say keys and then you would say, okay, and you automatically have that image in your brain of what keys are, and then you can go find your keys. So by doing this guide, we're hoping that you can spend a few minutes flipping through it, or I guess scrolling through it on your computer, and it will better allow you to remember and think about what bees look like, and then you'll have an easier time finding them in your garden. And our goal is to get this out to you about next week, so it's almost done. We're also hoping to do some in situ trainings. So those of you who have been involved with Nicole's work for a while might have had the opportunity to do bee blitzes back in 2019 at this point, and before then. But for those of you who haven't done it, they usually happen in something like Forest Park, and it's just everyone going to a large area and taking all the photos that they find and posting them. And what's great about these is that it will be hands-on learning from us and each other. So, we'll be around offering, giving people advice, helping people find those little bees. But you also will have an opportunity to learn from each other. Additionally, as Nicole mentioned, we're going to be bringing new people into the program. So we're really hoping at these bee blitzes, you all can be the experts and really help out the newbies. Get used to their technology and find those bees. So more information about this is to come, but we'll do them in small groups, masks, all those good stuff. And we're hoping to do these, late May, June. So check your email or, keep an eye on your email for when we send out information. Okay, also we're hoping to do some individualized trainings at your house. So we'll visit you while you're doing a survey, and this will be a time for you to ask individualized questions. We can really help point out those bees. Once again, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, that's totally okay. But we're hoping this will be an opportunity to really look at the bees together in your yard and help you find any that you may be missing, and just give general advice and answer specific questions about you and your yard as needed. And then also, some of you came to that Apidae ID course we did in February or whenever it was. And these are, just an opportunity to really go through the taxa, and we're brought in your search image, and we're hoping to put on another one this summer over Zoom for a lot of the bees that we didn't do in the first one. We're also hoping that in September or next fall, we're able to do some in-person BID courses, bring everyone to SLU, get everyone on microscopes, and really get the opportunity to look at specimens hands-on. But we got to wait for that, and more information to come for that, but hopefully we can do that at the end of the summer. Okay, with that, I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. Let me see if there's any questions I need to. Yeah. So Nancy will give information about, you know, vaccination and all that. But I think a lot of the science shows that if, everyone's masked and keep social distance and things like that, it'll be fine. We're not going to do vaccination checks. But I think most people, it seems like in this area, are vaccinated. But once again, if you don't feel comfortable going, then you don't have to.
And most of our team, we don't have all of our undergrads. We don't know who will be there yet, but many of the undergrads that possibly will, and Nina and I are both vaccinated at this point. So certainly for our team, we can't say anything about everybody else, but for our team, we want to keep exposure down. But at that point, just because we are vaccinated doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything else. So we'll be doing all the other things still too.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through just a reminder of what the protocol is. You all are great at it at this point, but it's been quite a few months, so we're just gonna do a little bit of a refresher real quick. I will say we put together, or mostly Cheyenne and Naomi and our undergrads from last summer put together this great Shutterbee participant handbook, which we'll be sending out soon. And this goes through everything that we've gone over in all the introductory trainings, all the protocol, all that information. So it has links to all the videos and guides we've put together. So hopefully this will be useful if you need a quick refresher on the training. Okay, so the survey protocol. Last year we kind of told you what time to do in your yard, but this year we trust you a little bit more. You all know your yard better than us. So what we're asking is that you pick a time to do in your yard based on how much time you think you need and how much time it takes you. We ask that it not be less than 20 minutes and more than 45 minutes, but just choose a time that works for you. It's okay if it takes you 1 or 2 sessions to figure out what that time is, but then just try to be consistent over the course of the summer. But we'll let you kind of figure out what that time is for you. We also had a question last time, which is, I think, a really good one. Someone asked if they needed to do 45 minutes, if they could break it up into, 3 15-minute chunks over the course of the day. That's totally fine. If you need to do that because, your phone's overheating or it's just really hot, but just make sure they're all on the same day, just so it kind of, it just fits together with the data protocol. Make sure you do your surveys between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. On sunny to partly cloudy days. So obviously you wouldn't do a sample today just because it's very overcast and socked in. And lastly, the temperature is between 60 degrees and 100 degrees. And as a reminder, we found that more surveys is better. So if you have an opportunity to go out and do an extra survey, that would be great. Sorry if you hear my cat like meowing in the background too. Okay. Okay, so this is a reminder to look high and low for bees. Really check out your flowering vegetables. So this is the squash bee. You'll find it pretty much only on squash, but you'll find lots of bees on tomato and basil and really anything you have going. Don't forget those weedy species. So a dandelion won't be out for many more weeks, but I have found quite a few native bee species on the dandelions this year. They really like it. So, bees aren't really, they don't assign our value system that we do to species, and you'll find them on, non-natives and weeds and things like that. Seek out diversity of those small bees. There's a lot out there. A lot of them might kind of look similar to you at first glance, but they can really differ once you look at the photos when you're not out in the bright hot sun. And lastly, if you're not sure if it's a bee, just take a picture anyway. There's lots of bees that kind of look not like bees, but if you just take a photo, we can help you sort it out, and maybe you'll realize you have a new bee in your yard or find like a crazy fly like this one. Okay. And submit your observations. The sooner you do it, the better. I learned this the hard way last year. I had about a month of data that I left backlogged, and it was a pain to type it all up. This isn't really a problem with this project, but I have really bad handwriting, so I couldn't read my own handwriting. It was just a mess. So we recommend just, within a day, just really try to submit your observations so you don't forget and just get it done with. Oh yeah, and make sure to tag your photos at least at B, just so that it gets fed into the system. If you want to ID it to something lower, that's totally okay as well. But yeah, make sure to ID your species to B. Okay, a reminder about data entry. So for each B, make sure you write SBEE, which just says that you did the protocol, or these photos were taken, following the protocol. Then put a comma, then put the time, and remember, this is the number of minutes you sampled. It's not the time of day. We already have that time of day data, but in order to group all the photos together from that observation period, we need this time. So that should just be 30 or 20 or 40, however many minutes you sampled. And then lastly, the plant, if you know what it's on, which we've learned that you all are very good at. So keep up the good work. We really appreciate that. If you don't know the plant, that's totally okay. But yeah, put it on if you know it. It really helps us. And yeah, we were just so impressed by all of your botany skills. It was great and it made us so happy. Okay, and you might ask, okay, why is this important? So this is some of the code that Emily put together. And you can see every time someone did something that differed from the protocol, it was a line of code to fix. So for example, here, people who wrote 30 minutes or 30 min or 30 minutes or 30 comma minutes, things like that. We know we're going to have to do some of this, but if you can reduce those errors to a minimum, it just really helps us. Or, someone here did 20, then SBE. So just try to remember the SBEE, comma, time, comma, plant, and just try to keep it basic at that. Okay, now I'm going to switch. Okay, I guess, does anyone have any quick questions about that? And then I'm going to switch gears again and talk about some technology updates.
I just want to layer on a couple things that Nina did a great job describing, but also thinking about when we're saying small bees, we are talking small bees. They can be itty bitty, the size of half a centimeter. So that's teeny tiny. And we know that you're not necessarily going to get perfectly in focus pictures, but you'd be surprised what we can actually identify from photographs that are fuzzy or from far away. And especially with those small bees, because they aren't quite as diverse as the medium-sized bees. And one tip that we have for that, just before Nina gets into showing you the website, because that's going to be a whole another level of information. And it's an awesome step up if you like working on the website. But I know my phone doesn't take very good pictures of those little bees. And so one thing that I did was tried out some of those clip-ons that are macro lenses that you can clip onto your phone. And the one that I found that worked the best for me, now there are a bunch that are out there, but it's the Apexel. I can put it in the chat. One second. And the reason why I liked the Apexel, there might be other ones that are even better that I haven't tried yet. But out of the ones I tried, I liked this one because it has a focal range of 2 to 3 inches. So that means you can be 2 to 3 inches away from the bee and still get a picture of it, because we know that bees can be skittish. And that's especially true of the smaller bees and early in the year. So bumblebees, for instance, the queens are really skittish in the beginning of the year, but the workers are less so later in the year. So they clip on really easily. So you can sort of clip them on, take a few shots of the big bees, or take a few shots of the little bees. If you have a big bee that won't stand still for you, you can take it off and just clip it back on. So that's one way to help get those little bees. I tell this story every time, but that's because I think it's funny. I was so excited. I sent this picture to Nina. And I was like, Nina, look, I got this awesome picture. And she goes, just get a Pixel. And she sent me her picture. Pixels apparently already have a built-in macro. So she had this amazing up close B. So if you already have a Pixel, then it may not be helpful to have the macro. But if you don't, if you're like me and you have an iPhone, that's a little bit subpar apparently in the camera range, then go ahead and try that out.
Yeah, I had iPhones for a long time, and then I got a Pixel, and now I'm a snob. But
Yeah, she's drinking the Kool-Aid, the
yeah,
Pixel Kool-Aid. All right, I think that was the main thing I wanted to layer on, because there were some questions in the chat about that. And also, they're small. You don't, I wouldn't know if they were a bee or a fly sometimes until I zoomed in and looked at the picture. So if you're not sure, please upload it. It's much easier for us to be like, nope, that's actually a fly, rather than to miss species, right? We are really hungry for those little species. So if in doubt, please post.
for sure. Okay. So after my iPhone slander, I'm going to talk about iPhones for a second. This is featuring my mom's cat. I don't have an iPhone, as I mentioned. But now with iPhones, you can upload more than four photos at a time. So some of you who had an iPhone, you did a lot of like clicking back and forth every time you wanted to add a new photo. But now you can add multiple photos at once. So what you do is you essentially just hold down on the photo for a second until these little blue check marks appear. And then if you like click one by mistake or something, you can just tap it again and the check mark will go away. And you can do up to 4 photos at once, and then you can press add. If you say had 7 photos for a bee, you can do 4 and then do another add and then add 3 more. But hopefully this will be help for you. I think the easiest thing to do is just, a lot of people have their updates on their apps go automatically. So what I would do is just try to, make a dummy observation. It doesn't need to be of anything. It can be of, 4 random photos you have, and just try to add them. And if this is working, then great, you're all set. If it's not working, it means you need to update your app. And to that, you just go to like the Play Store, and there's usually like a little button you can press that says update, and then you can click all the apps you want to update. And if you have questions about that, we're happy to help you. We can email you some instructions or something like that. Or if you want to stick around at the end, we can try to help you do that. But hopefully this will be help for you, those of you who want to use iPhone. Yeah, it was, Maddie, it was a much needed change. I don't know why they hadn't implemented it earlier. But that being said, if I'm going to do a little website demo, because of those of you who haven't used the website, it can be really efficient and easy, and we'll cut down on some of that entry time. So some benefits of the website, even if you're using your phone, is a lot of people's phones these days, like the photos automatically sync to something. So it's really easy to get the photos off your phone and onto your computer. But the website, just because you have a whole computer, it has a better interface. And what's really cool is you can also check in on the project a little easier, see what other people are posting, see what species are out, have that little social interaction associated with the project. So I'm going to stop share here real quick and do a quick share of the website.
And while Nina's pulling that up, I want to just caution before we get into this. If what works for you using your phone, that's totally fine. If you want to continue to use your phone, that's what you're comfortable with, that's fine. This can be an efficient upgrade, but we didn't want to include it last year because, we wanted to there were so many other things that you were learning at the same time. So this might be a good time to learn a new skill that'll maybe speed things up a little bit. But we did have some questions at our previous trainings asking if it was okay to still use the app on their phones. Totally okay. Whatever works for you. We're just offering up options.
For sure. Okay, so as I mentioned, it can be really easy to access the photos. So for example, I was talking about how I have a Pixel, mine automatically get sent to my Google Photos. So what I'm able to do here is I went to Shaw last Friday. Here's a bunch of photos I took. I can just click this button here, and then I can download all the photos at once. I can go here. But if you have an iPhone, you have an iCloud, and it often does similar things. Okay, so this is my, iNaturalist page. So to upload photos, you go to this upload button here. So I'm going to click upload. You can choose a bunch of options. So you can actually like connect it if you wanted to your Google account or your Flickr account if you wanted to, which is nice. But mine are just I downloaded them. They're on my desktop. They're in this folder called SBE photos. If they weren't here, I could, go to wherever they were. But I'm just going to select all these photos and open them. You can see they upload pretty quickly. And what makes this really easy is that I take the photos of my hands in between shots. And what that allows me to do is really see which bees are, separated out. But these 3 photos are all of the same bee, so I need to combine them as one. So what I do is I just hold on to one and I drag it into another. And now you can see it says 1 out of 2 here, which makes it easy. So I know there's 2 photos. So I'm going to drag this one together. And now it's all of those. And then I have these 3 photos. So once again, I'm dragging everything just between the hands. It makes it nice and easy. I got a bunch of photos for this one. So I got to drag them all together. And then I got this one down here. Okay, so now that I have all my photos dragged together, I can delete my hand photos. I don't need to post those. So you just go and you mouse up and this little X will come up and it will say remove. So I can just remove it. So I do that with all the hands. Okay, and then here is where it gets really nice and quick. Is I can go up to the top here and press select all, and then it's going to select all the observations at once. And then what I can do is I can go to the species name here and I can just type in bee and select bee, and poof, all the observations have bee automatically set. Now, if there's ones I wanted to ID further, you could change that. So I can click on this one. I can see that's Andrina, so I can go to here and switch this one out for Andrina if I wanted to. But if you want to just baseline do everything as B, then it can be really quick. And then next you have the notes section. So I can just go to the notes. I'm going to once again press select all. I'm going to do SBEE. Let's say I did 20 minutes. And then you can see that it's been put for all of these already. And if I wanted to do individual flowers now, I can click on the photo. I can look at this. Oh, this is where you all are better than me. I think this is a rocket species. And I can click on the photo to look at it big and get an idea of what the flowers are. So this is, I gotta change this out, Northosport bivalve. Hopefully you'd look these up or make sure your spelling's right, but this is close enough. I could copy this one over because this is the same species and just do it like this. So yeah, this just shows this is just a way to show you that it can be really quick and efficient to get these observations together on your computer. If you need to change any information like the date or the time, like for example, most of the time mine works, but sometimes it glitches and the time didn't come up. So if I needed to manually enter a time, I could do it. Say I didn't know exactly what time it was, but it was like roughly 2 p.m. Then it was good, etc., etc. And then once you're done, you just press the submit observation button and they get submitted. But yeah, it can be really quick and efficient. Okay, we got a question about sending instructions. Yeah, we have them somewhere. We'll send them out. There's also a video we made last year, which we'll send out. But it's, yeah, and this will just be a way to do it. And once again, if this is something you don't want to deal with, it's totally fine to do that. Yeah, how to enter location. Yeah, so your location should hopefully be done, but if you need to change it, you could press select all and then enter multiple locations. If I needed to type in an address, I could just type in an address here and then update all the observations, and you can see they just all updated. So if there's ever something that needs to be changed for all of them, then you can just press select all and change them all at once, which is just really nice and efficient. But I think that's all. Oh, one other thing I wanted to go over. I'm going to go out of here real quick. So I'm not going to submit these observations because I've already submitted them. But one thing we noticed is that with some of the bees, like the small ones, you'll see multiple, like the hylaeus, the males congregate, and you'll see a bunch of them at once. And what happens is if we see that, we want to make sure that all those bees you found that are in the same shot are all counted as a separate bee. And there's not really a good way to do that on iNaturalist. So what you need to do is upload the photo more than once. But it can get confusing because people monitor about whether or not a photo is duplicated. So say there was 2 bees in the shot, I wouldn't want to put it in the notes section, but I would just put a comment here and say like, please ID the bee on the left. And then I would upload another photo, the exact same photo, and say, please update or like ID the bee on the right. So that way each bee is counted as its own separate observation. And then we get that information that you actually got 2 bees in the frame. Even if they look exactly the same or something like that, that allows us to make sure that both bees are counted in the numbers that you found in your yard. Okay. I think that's all the questions. Yeah, about entering location on the phone. We have those videos we'll send out again that we made, and that have all the information that you can go through for the iPhone, the Android, and the computer. And the nice thing about those videos is that you can pause them and rewind them and slow them down and speed them up, do whatever you need to do to go through it. But we just wanted to do this little demo now, just to introduce you to the website if you hadn't used it before.
There's a question about using the getting multiple shots at the same time and then selecting the one that you want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I had tried to respond to that in the chat, but perhaps it wasn't clear.
Yeah, so sorry if you mean like selecting the focal one? What do you mean?
That was the question that was in the chat anyway, was how do you select the key one from the live? And that you have to do before you upload it to your, or download it to your computer, or before you upload it to iNaturalist.
Yeah.
And we have videos on that as well. But it just is, if you already have live on your phone or something similar, you it's like a little sunburst icon is what it looks like to me anyway.
And yeah, we have video about that, but I found that like generally it does a pretty good job of choosing. Occasionally I need to swap it out, but like a lot of times it does a pretty good job choosing which one it is. And yeah, Liz, this is Shutterbee. You should already be in the project, so you should be able to automatically go and look into it. Okay, we have a few more slides, and then I guess we'll take any other questions. So let me just go over those real quick. One sec.
We do recommend too that you join the iNaturalist project. You don't have to, your individual observations will automatically populate to our project, so don't worry about that. But if you go to the website, you can actually find our project and then join our project, and then it's easily accessible to you. You can go and take a look at what other people are finding, seeing what's commonly found at that time of year, you know, then maybe it can start helping you with that search image as well.
But on that note, some of you took the BID course. Feel free to start IDing your own species, but please do not ID other people's yet. We're afraid, like we even had this rule for our undergrads last year. There's something called confirmation bias where you just see, you know, you trust other people, which is great, but you trust that other people's IDs are right. And that can really mess up the system if you all are agreeing with each other. So feel free to put IDs for your own photos. But please do not go and okay other people's IDs yet. Okay.
Cindy sent me a direct message, and Cindy, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're asking. Do you want a second location if we go there twice a month?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I go to Bellefontaine Cemetery and volunteer there. Do you want any pictures from that location if I go there and take them twice a month?
Yeah, if you want to. We have someone else, Ned already does stuff there, so you're welcome to as well.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
We can put you in contact about where he goes to, so he can give you
Okay.
some intel.
One change in the protocol though, you would want to put SBEE 1 or SBEE 2, and then you would, just so that you can differentiate whether or not you were at your first location or whether or not you were at Bellefontaine.
So I changed that where in the typing it in
Yes,
as, okay.
yes.
And we
And
can,
do I have to, I don't know how to ID the second location?
No,
It-
we'll be able to figure that out. We just as long as you're consistent. So I would keep the
Yeah.
location you did last year, keep that as SBEE 1,
Right,
and then
okay,
add the new one for SBEE 2.
okay. But if I don't take it twice a month, it's not really helpful.
Well, this case is a little bit different because we already have somebody else collecting there. So between the two of you, we would get even more data, which
Okay.
would be great. So I think he was going to one of the sort of areas that's cultivated with natives.
Mhm.
So yeah.
maybe this is
Okay.
something we'll try to talk just independently with you. But yeah, if people want to add
Okay.
locations, or I say change locations, maybe you're just like, my garden's not doing what I want it to do. It's kind of boring, blah, blah, blah. We're happy if you want to switch locations this year. We can help you find a new location that's nearby. Just be in contact, and we can help you with that. If you want to switch locations for whatever reason or add a location.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, that goes more generally.
Oh, and if we had I can't remember, I've had a burn conservation home a long time ago, and I don't know what grade it was. I have to find that report, but
Yeah.
you would want to know that.
We have all that information. If you've ever been in the program, we have all that information.
Oh, I don't
They're
have to go.
they're collaborators on the project, so
Yeah.
they share that information with us.
We know everything about your yard. Nothing about you, but we know a lot about your yards. Okay, I have a few more slides. I'm just gonna go through those, and then
Hold on one second. Can I answer another question in
Yeah,
the
go for it.
thing? Sorry, Nina, to
Yeah.
interrupt. But this is one that I think would be good for everybody to hear too. So if we ID a bee in our own observation and another person suggests a different ID, do not just agree with it. Wait for somebody else, unless you're like, oh yeah, you're right. I totally missed that one trait. Now that I see it, you're right. But again, that's this confirmation bias, right? And so we really want to have as many independent people looking at it as we can, because then we have more confidence in it, and we ourselves, for our team, last year, we looked at at least 2 of us, if not 3 of us, looked at every observation. So yeah, and don't worry if you get it wrong the first time. It'll self-correct because there will be 2 or 3 other people looking at it. So if you want to start learning, please do on your own observations. Okay, sorry, Nina, go on now.
No, go for it. Okay, so we also have a video, which I'm not gonna go through now, but we'll send out. And this is about doing batch edit, which is kind of what I was showing you for the computer, where you could select all of them at once and change the date, but this is after the fact. So if you maybe uploaded them from your phone and you just wanted to upload the photos from your phone, but then put in all that metadata, the SBEE on your computer, just because it's, you have a full keyboard, you could do that. So we're going to send out these slides, so you'll have that video. But that's like a kind of in between using your phone and your computer. Or, if you realize you made some mistake later and want to change a bunch of things at once, you can use this. Maddie, you don't ever have to click agree if you don't want to. It doesn't matter. Okay. So this is our last slide. So we are going to get started in a week, which is super exciting. Hopefully the weather will be a little bit nicer than right now. We're planning on doing those bee blitzes in late May or early June. We'll be in touch with more information. And then we're hoping to do site visits and another BID workshop later in the summer in June, July. And then we'll end the season in September. So as a reminder, yeah, we're recruiting people right now. We've put out some information, but if you know anyone who you think would be interested, please send them our way. But yeah, we're really excited for the season. We're really jazzed to have new people. and all that. Okay, Jessica asked about you'll be back May 2nd. So this is just like the kickoff date. If you don't have to do a survey May 1st. So really just you can get one in those first 2 weeks of May, but it's probably going to be a little slow to start just because most bees are really start happening, you know, mid-June or something. So it might be a little slow at the beginning of the year. But you know, enjoy those spring temperatures as opposed to July temperatures.
And remember, you don't have to go every 14 days either, right? Because we know that weather is going to be different. Your schedule is going to be different. So if you're going 10 days and then 14 days and then, you know, in between your observations, that's fine. We just want them spaced out so that you are getting a new ecological subset, right? So you don't want to do 10 surveys in 10 days because the bees haven't turned over yet. The bees turn over weeks.
But I think that's pretty much it. We have a few more slides. We're going to send these out. So we'll just have a little update on all the videos and all that, just a little quick guide. So we're going to send these slides out soon. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop the share. Is there anything we missed? Or I missed or you missed that we need to go over?
I don't think we missed anything, but we'll open the floor for questions.
Yeah, but that's it. I guess thank you all for coming today. We're super excited for the season. Yeah, I guess we'll take some questions. If you have to go, that's totally okay. If you need to email us, you know, come up with any questions later, feel free to email them to us and we'll get back to you. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, Maddie, you have a question.
Yeah, quick question. So regarding the times, like in the beginning, let's say it takes us 30 minutes towards the end of the summer when there's more bees. Like in the beginning, do we need to stay out 30 minutes if we walk it and there's not like anything much in those first days? Or is that a yes, we have to always consistently be at whatever time we set?
I think I'm going to defer to you on that, Nicole.
I'm sorry, I was typing in the chat and I missed the question.
Yeah, okay, I think I can answer. I think, yeah, those first 2 sessions, you know, May, I think we're gonna, you know, people are still figuring it out, what makes sense for their yard. So feel free to, you know, make that a little bit shorter if you need to. But really, once we get into June through, you know, September, try to be consistent in the time. That's also where we're gonna have all the new people coming in as well. So, you know, we're expecting to have kind of a small data set for May, and I'm not even sampling in May. So if it ends up being a little shorter time, that's okay. But by summer, just try to be consistent in a time throughout the summer.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? We're super excited that we actually get to do some in-person stuff this year. Small bee, it's hard to capture those small bees things. That's a very common issue for community science or probably any bee study, but definitely within community science. And one of the ways that other programs have improved that and basically made up any potential biases is through in-person, being out together, looking at bees and saying, yep, that's a little one. Yep, even that. Yep, that too. And helping you change your search image. So please do try to come to those. We're really excited about it. And we think it'll help you catch those little bees. But with that, if there's no other questions, you guys can be about on your Saturday. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.